Okay, so the purpose of this video is to show you how I might plan for my Buckeye buddy. Her name is Avery, and she is in kindergarten. The book that I'm going to be reading with Avery is called Hiding. And this book would be considered slightly above grade level for kindergarten. So as you are using your lesson plan, it's important for you to read the text to yourself and ask questions. Ask yourself all of these areas that are down the left-hand side here. So while we're reading Hiding, I'm going to be doing some thinking aloud around what this book is really about, what might be the theme, or maybe make some sort of connection to something that we worked on before. And then really thinking about what is the book actually about? What is the plot and what's going on here? We're also going to be thinking about challenges as we're reading this book to ourselves. What are some text layouts, some vocabulary, word solving, and high frequency word challenges, and potentially some literary element challenges? So as I read Hiding, I'm going to be thinking aloud about what comes to my mind as I'm planning for this lesson. Hiding. Oh, the first thing I see is his name is Puff. Puff the cat is looking at this bumblebee, and he has scared look on his face. So I think he's going to be hiding in this story from that bumblebee that's right there in the picture. Puff likes to hide in the box. Puff likes to hide in the bag. Puff likes to hide in the closet. Puff likes to hide behind the chair. Puff likes to hide in the basket. Puff likes to hide under the rug. Puff likes to hide under the bed. Puff likes to hide in the bed too. Very cute story about Puff the cat trying to get away from that bumblebee he saw early on. So we say, what is this book really about? And the reason we're asking that first is because we really want to draw the kids in and help them make an immediate connection. And so we might say something like, has there ever been a time where you were afraid of something and wanted to hide? Where you were afraid of something and wanted to hide. And so the child will give you some ideas there. If they don't have any ideas, you might even use the idea of a bumblebee to say, have you ever been afraid of a bumblebee? And where might you hide from a bumblebee? So I would take that right into, we're going to read a story called Hiding. And in this story, Puff the cat is afraid of a bumblebee. So I'm giving the basics here so that the child knows what they're getting into as they're starting the story. It's afraid of a bumblebee. And it's going to take place all around the house. and he'll find different places to hide. Now we have to start thinking about some of the challenges that we noticed in this text. Text layout has some different ideas down there, and actually this text presents a couple challenges that we'll talk about. The first challenge that we want children to see very early on is that this text has 2 lines of print. And so right away, I'm going to write here, page 2, I'm going to show the 2 lines of print. I'm also going to model how to read those lines of print. Avery might not know that when I get to the end of this line, I have to come back here and go this way. Sometimes kids think that you read in this fashion. It also has another feature that I noticed at the very end, where it has this bold word, in. And so on page 16, I want to talk about what do you think that bold word means, and I'm going to tell her that it means that he actually went in the bed. So I'm writing bold word in from page 16 and talking about that in terms of text layout. Okay. Now we're going to look at vocabulary, word solving, and high frequency words. I noticed as I was reading through, the first line of print is always Puff likes to hide. And so that's a repeated phrase that I want to make sure that Avery knows. So I'm going to put that in quotes right here, and I'm going to write Puff likes to hide. And I want her to say that with me. Puff likes to hide, because I really want that to sound like smooth language, like how we might talk. But right away, what I notice are some high frequency words that are here. The word in and the word the. So on page 2, I also want to show her that little word in, because that is a high frequency word. I want her to also be able to see and recognize the word the. Now what happens is after she starts to read in the, we see that the actual, that word changes as Puff the cat goes into different places. So that word becomes behind, then it goes back to in, then it's under, and then back to in. So I want her to be able to recognize when she gets to this word, uh-oh, it's not the word in anymore. What might that be? This is when I actually get to word solving, because I want her to think about what is he, where is he, and what word might it be that starts with a b. So on page 8, we're going to actually practice getting our mouth ready for the word behind. And that's going to be called a predict and locate. Which word would you expect to be the word behind on this page? It starts like b. Okay. Then remember, it goes back to in, and then she'd be able to see that he's under the rug. And so we're just going to talk about how on this page, he likes to be under the rug. I might do a predict and locate for but because it's a vowel, that might be a little bit tricky. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to write it down here just in case. Okay. And in this book, there's no dialogue being introduced, so I don't think that we'll have any literary elements to discuss there. One thing that I am going to be looking out for, though, in this kind of book, is when she reads, this one's pretty clear that Puff likes to hide in the box, right? So that's a box. But what I'm really going to be looking for is When she gets here, does she say Puff likes to hide in the bag, or does she say sack? Because she very well may say sack. If she does, I'm going to ask her what letter she would expect to see at the beginning of the word sack. That might help. That might also happen in other places. For example, here, she might say, Puff likes to hide in the door. Well, if this said door, what would I expect to be first in that word? So I'm going to be listening for her attempts as she's using the picture to help her. I'm going to help her what's called cross-check to see if she's matching the letter that's there with the picture that she's using for meaning. So finally, I'm going to set an intention for reading, and oftentimes this circles right back to the theme. It also might be a strategy that we want for the reader to do. So I might say, as we read, think about all the ways Puff tries to hide from the bee. I'm also going to say we are going to point to each word and make sure our reading looks right and makes sense. Okay, so now that my notes are in place, what I have to do is think about the order that I want to make sure that these go in. So you can see here that I'm going to be doing some talking, but then I have page 2, page 8, page 12, page 16. So I want to make this sound like a really good conversation, and I want to make sure that these page numbers happen in order. This conversation happens in order as we are looking through this book together. So I will turn this page over, and I'm going to be writing here what it is that I'm going to actually say to Avery based on my notes. Okay? So I'm going to say, Avery, has there ever been a time where you were so afraid of something that you wanted to hide? So I'll let her talk about that. Then we'll go right into the next part of, this is a story called Hiding. In this story, Puff, the cat, is afraid of a bumblebee, and he hides in lots of places around the house. Then I will say, let's start by looking at page 2. Here's Puff. Oh, there's the bumblebee, I will point out. Look where Puff is hiding. So on page 2, I will or on page 2. No, let me erase that. First thing I have to do is show that, make sure I don't forget about the bumblebee. I'm going to say, look at this picture of Puff's face. And that's where he sees the bumblebee. He sees the bumblebee. Then I will say, look at the first place he hides. In the box. And she'll definitely notice that, won't she? Okay. Then I'm going to say, when we read this page, we will point to all the words. And this is where I'm going to model reading. Puff likes to hide in the box. And I might have her do it with me. And I'm just going to put here, repeat. Okay? So that's the one thing, 2 lines of print. But I also wanted to point out the word in and the from my planning piece here. So here, I'm going to say this is the little word in, and this is the little word the. Can you say in, and the? I'm going to just write on here, find in and the. And I want to make sure she repeats, Puff likes to hide in the box. Okay. So my next stopping point is going to be page 8. So I'm going to skip all the way to page 8 and say Puff likes to hide in lots of different places, but look at this picture. Where's Puff hiding? So I'm going to say on page 8, where is Puff hiding? And I'm going to ask her, make sure she uses the word behind. And so then I'm going to predict, I'm going to say, which word do you think would be the word behind? Say it slowly. Which word would be the word behind? And what I'm trying to do is get her to really say that first letter. It makes sense that he's behind the chair from the picture. Now we're going to find that word behind over in the print. Then we're going to maybe do under in the same way on page 12. So page 12, which word would be under? Of course, we'll talk about he's under the rug. And then last thing in my plans is page 16. I want her to see that word in that we looked at before, but this time I'm going to say, look at when Puff likes to hide in the bed. And then we're going to talk about why is that word bold, because it's really an important word, in the bed. Okay? So there might be some challenges. There should be some challenges for Avery along the way. And as she's reading, I'm going to take my notes right here and give her support along the way. If she gets stuck, I might say, try something. If she tries something, I might say, oops, that wasn't quite right. Let's try that again. I might enforce fluency by saying, make your reading sound like talking. Or I might reinforce some good things she did, like, I like the way you. And I'm always looking for how my reader did in terms of what went well, how did the reading sound, and how did I support word solving or meaning making. This will happen during the lesson. Okay, we are ready for our lesson with Avery.